Alright guys, so today we're going to be taking Emma Frost up against the International Women's Boss Rush. So we've first up got Elsa Bloodstone, who has Dish Track, Got a Light, I think unblockable specials and life transfer. So the difficulty of this fight is being able to get your 3 debuffs on, and thankfully Got a Light's pretty easy for getting them on quickly. So theoretically you can do this with any champion. Of course it has bleed vulnerability on it, so if you want to bring a bleeder, you're going to need to bring a mutant and you'll get a nice damage bonus for that. But here we're not going to utilise that because Emma Frost doesn't bleed. But when you line up the 3 incinerates with the special 2, you get a nice heal off a life transfer. And of course you deal a bunch of damage because Emma Frost is an absolute truck when she's at rank 3 and just generally. I think so you can see this fight's going pretty quickly. Non-damaging debuffs are going to be quite difficult to use in this fight because Elsa's going to purify one of them every 3 seconds. That's why the Got a Light's quite nice because you don't need to worry about that. So you can see Emma's cleaned this up pretty quickly here. And we'll be moving on to Sorcerer Supreme next, who is one of the most problematic fights in here simply because of the block damage coming from the Disorient. If you dash back twice, the armor break she places on you, and of course she gets her natural fury. And Emma Frost, she doesn't really have anything in particular that's great for this fight. She'll mitigate a lot of damage in diamond form, but because Sorcerer Supreme is going to be placing armor break on you, you're not going to get much of that benefit, to be honest. The really nice thing here is willpower, because she'll place her debuffs on you as soon as she activates the special. And this is going to be a longer fight simply because Sorcerer Supreme's pretty tanky here with the Arc Overload and their natural regen, plus the, well, really just, she's just a pretty tanky champion. In all honesty, and it's difficult to build up your prowess in Emma simply because you're not going to be getting as many openings, and if you are getting openings, they're generally fairly far apart because you need to intercept and bait specials, and their specials are pretty long. But you know, Emma's getting through it. It's going to take about 100 hits to get through this fight, I think. I don't know, we'll check at the end. So you can see here, Sorcerer Supreme, we've got the Disorient, the armor breaking the slow on us, we're getting a nice willpower heal, although we did just eat that special 2 to the block. That wasn't intentional, it just wasn't playing great. But we're going to heal it up mostly. It's not going to be particularly difficult to get back to a good amount of health. I mean, Emma's a rank 3, she's not going to be dying to blocked hits in here because the attack values aren't mad. The block damage can get hefty, as you can see there. That was about 9,000 through block, but I'm going to try and evade them from now on because no point blocking him. I don't get the distance to go back in and retaliate if she's already got a special, and I am actually dashing back twice to get the Disorient on me so I can get that willpower heal. Yeah, it's a pretty standard fight, just as long as you're intercepting games decent, you know, you're not going to struggle with this fight too much. Void is a really good option for it, I've seen, because obviously he can reverse the power gain and the regen. Just spam heavy in the corner, so M's definitely not the best option for this, but she can get through it just fine, as most characters can if you're playing well. So we're just going to finish up this fight here. I don't know, I think we're going to go for one more special 2 here once we beat out her special 2. Yep, and we're going to end this fight at a full yellow bar. So you can see we're down at like 60% at one point in that fight, and we're back up a full yellow bar, and that's just purely through willpower heal. And next up we have Black Widow. So this fight you need to worry about the defensive ability accuracy and the evade, and she's got a good chunk of power gain. What I'm going to try and do a lot of times here is use my heavy in diamond form to mitigate the power gain she's going to get from my hits, and then I'm going to try and counter her specials with any heavy, because when she's in telepath form I'll place it, well, I've got a 60% chance to place a taunt, which means I can kind of counter her a bit easier. Her damage here isn't going to be the best. I'm going to just stay in my telepath form because then she isn't going to evade me and I don't need to worry about that, especially since I'm throwing heavies and she can quite easily retaliate if you're doing that. So I'm just going to save up my special 3 for when she's quite low. Got a nice little tempo in the fight. I don't think I get hit in this, but the trick is to keep your prowess up just so you've got a decent bit of crit on you, because she almost functions like Aegon. When she's at 10 prowess she'll be critting in almost every hit. But if Black Widow does turtle up, you might struggle a bit to keep your prowess active. It's not a particularly difficult fight, and Archangel probably is more effective for this. I've seen a lot of Archangel takedowns out there, but you know, Emma Frost will work, and she obviously works in the whole thing. Power control will work for this fight, especially since you've got power reserve in both champions. You know, magic is probably going to crush this, but you do need to worry about that 3% chance to evade, or what's supposed to be a 3% chance to evade, even though it sometimes feels like a lot more. So we're going to throw off our special 3 here in this fight. It's not going to be too much of an issue. And then we're going to move on to Jubilee. And actually, I did do the whole thing through once before, at least. I tried to, but I got to Jubilee. I threw an SP2 to finish the fight. It didn't crit. She was at like 2%, and somehow I went from 19% to 0% health. I'm not quite sure what caused that, but thankfully we won't see that here, and we can see that we're actually 3 fights in and we're still at 100% max health. So it's actually, Emma's actually really sustainable for this, especially if you've got willpower, because a lot in the fights in this, they do just kind of deal a lot of block damage to you or kind of debuff damage to you, especially in this fight. That's really the only trick of it. If you've got someone that's sustainable, they can fairly easily get through all these fights. So if Jubilee here, she gains 100% of a bar of power whenever you reach your first bar of power, so you want to make sure, unless you're really confident evading the SP2, just bait out our special 1, push yourself to your first bar of power, and then just bait out another special 1. I do get clipped in this fight here because of the Unstoppable, because I really wasn't paying attention to what buff she was getting. The armor break is actually working in my favour there, so I can build prowess a bit easier when I've got the armor break on me and I'm in telepath form. But, you know, Dragon was saying on Twitter she designed this fight to be quite chaotic. So you've got the Conflictor kind of eating your debuffs, you've got power gain whenever you reach 1 bar of power, you've got debuffs and buffs flying around. She certainly nailed the chaotic, you know, idea of this, but it's not too bad a fight as long as you're kind of keeping control. And actually one really nice thing is if you can use Conflictor to your advantage. So if she's got the Unstoppable buff, which she seems to get quite frequently, I'm going to be honest, you can just parry, get the Conflictor and push her to her special if she's not already at 1, bait it out, and that should reset the Unstoppable. Not reset, replace I should say. Really don't want to reset the Unstoppable. You can see we're in the corner there, but we're going to throw off this special and end Jubilee pretty quickly. Next up we have the quickest fight in the entire boss rush, Tigra. So because Emma can get to her specials pretty quickly through using her heavy attack in diamond form, we're pretty much going to kill Tigra before she's had the chance to throw off more than 1 special. And Emma's specials are psychic attacks, as you would expect from a telepath. So she's just going to get a full heal off of this and deal massive damage and just completely one-shot the fight, as you're going to see. Don't bring a champion that doesn't deal projectile or whatever here. You do have pull, so your dominoes or whatever will do fairly well, but you can see there, 300k special. Tigra didn't really stand a chance, up to full health. And then finally we have Storm X, who I'm not a big fan of this fight simply because you take glancing damage. There is a way to shut it down, and we'll get into that, and that's the power drain. If you power drain, or I think even power steal Storm X, she's going to shut down our Tempests. And one thing I never realised that I do realise just here is because Emma's power heavy gives the opponent less power, this seems to count as like a power drain or power steal. So that'll shut down our Tempest. It's not great because it's kind of inconsistent because of glancing, but you know, it can work, get you a temporary reprieve. And we're going to lose a decent chunk of health to glance in this fight, but I've done it with a few champions now and they never seem to die from the glancing damage, probably just because Storm doesn't have the highest health pool in the world, so don't really need to worry about it too much. If you've got an Emma or an Archangel, you know, they'll deal a lot of damage while shutting down the glancing, although I think Archangel's still bugged in that regard and he's not going to shut down the glancing, even though he definitely should. You do have your stage fright node here, so that will cause your specialist guns if you use them within, I think it's 15 seconds of each other. It might be 8, something's telling me 8, so just time your, you know, specials outside of that and you'll be absolutely fine. Long distance relationship can actually work to your favour here if you've got willpower. If you stay close you can get a bit of healing, which might mitigate some of the, you know, glancing damage. But that's Emma going to finish up this fight, and that's us. Emma Frost, reckon another bit of content, because as it turns out, she is a bit of a beast of a champion. See you later.